Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this really exciting session where we'll be discussing about Power BI. I'll quickly just like to run through some sound check. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, please? Okay, so that's great. That's great. That's great. So while we get on the way, so Power BI, and that's what the session is all about, discussing Power BI, what what it is, what can it be used for, and here we're assuming zero knowledge, in using the software itself, Power BI. So you don't need to um, get a little bothered if you're not so familiar with the tool. That's fine. Um, Basically, just going to try to run from the basis. We're going to try to make it as simple as possible from the basis. Okay. Now, some of the things I like to just quickly touch on when it comes to Power BI, what it is. It's several things that have been described or ascribed to it, and what's one of those things that have been popularly associated with Power BI? That's to say that it's a data visualization tool, it's a business intelligence tool. That's something that is really skipped on when people speak about it. It's actually Power BI, meaning business intelligence. So, how can we apply it in our everyday workings? It's that when we think about it, the world is it's filled with information, and you need to make informed decisions. So you want to buy something, you want to be sure that you've considered all possible alternatives and you're selecting the best fit. You want to go out, you want to be sure that you have all the information available. And with a business intelligence tool such as the Power BI, it allows you to analyze data and also present this data in an easy to understand format for your intended audience. Now, for the intended audience, I'm going to speak a little on intended audience. What would you classify as the intended audience, and what do they really entail? So, intended audience, quickly, your intended audience could be a vertical high line, say you're in an office and your superiors, or it could be horizontal, or it could even be broader than that, where you're just sharing with members of the public. So, how they are going to perceive this information that you're sharing is really important. And some important things to consider when you're preparing information. I don't want to just use the word reports, information to people. Is you have to try to figure out who do I intend to send this to? Who do I intend to share this with? And now for the persons I intend to share this with, what is the person's interest area? So if it's your superior, you try to know the test. If you're trying to prepare this for investors, you also want to know what you think the investors would be interested in getting. Okay. Um, so a typical instance before we jump into the data we'll be working with here is to say currently this is the 10th of August 2024, right? This is the day of this recording. And one of the things that is going on, you know, the world is the Olympics. Okay, the Summer Olympics. You might want to add that distinction to it, but the Olympics. And so, if you want to share information of the Olympics, which audience are you putting in mind? Are they government officials? Are these young athletes? Perhaps you want to encourage younger ones to get into sports. You would try to imagine like there are certain information that would be of more importance to certain spaces than to others. So, having said this, I'll also try to mix certain terms that you should try to get familiar with. Now, one of such terms is the metrics. the metrics that you intend to use, having gauged your intended audience, is very, very critical, for what you want to achieve. The metrics, it's not something that can be overemphasized. It's not something that can be oversized. The metrics. Who are you sharing this with? What do you think the person would need to know? And then the level of detail that the person needs to get from the information that you're sharing. Um, Now, the data set we're going to be working with, let me just push this up so you can see what I have on my screen, right? So you can see what I have on my screen, and that's, so I'm going to select this so you can just view my entire screen. Okay, so we have this data set, thanks to platforms like Kaggle and the rest, been able to furnish us with, you can get this, the link is going to be provided, the description of this video. 120 years of Olympic history, it says athletes, and I'm always going to try to just refer a little bit to it to see the general context, and then the columns of the data. Now, it suffice to say that this data we're dealing with here is a structured data. Okay, structured data. So we have our Power BI platform as it is, and we want to import this data into it. So we're going to select the data source. We have several. I'm just going to select other sources here, and then go to this from another source, load this up here. I'm going to select, I have already downloaded from this point here. I've already downloaded what I wanted. You can download from here, swipe down and download this from this point as well. It came in as a zip. I extracted its CSV and I have it saved. So the CSV file, I'm just going to connect to it so I can navigate quickly to my file, explore, and select the file there. So while it's important, just to touch on a few things about the program. Now, what are the things about the program that the Power BI? You see that it has imported this data into this temporal view. Now, what you have here, I don't want you to get lost with what you're seeing. So you're seeing this window that has certain dialogues here. Now, if your data set is already structured, like in this case here, structured is in that it's an organized form. You have columns, those vertical points, and you have rows, the horizontal points. That's a sample of structured data, and irrespective of the format that is stored in, CSV, a spreadsheet file, perhaps an Excel, it's exported from, it's called now, from Google Sheets. So other applications, it really, really doesn't matter so much. Okay. So other applications, really, really doesn't. So I'm just going to quickly just have some bounce feedback. Sorry, please, I just attend to that quickly. Okay. So speaking to this dialogue that you have here, a few things to just call your attention to. What we're saying here is it's interpreting the data set, and it says data type detection based on first 200 rows. This is like its default expression. You don't need to, at this point, bother yourself with this aspect of the Power BI application. Okay, we're just going to get into more things. You have load, we have transform data, we have cancel. The transform data, it's if you're not okay with what you have here and some bits of formatting to it. And now this whole dialogue that you're saying here will take you, click on the transform data, the Power Query which is kind of like an engine that fuels the Power BI application. We don't need to get into that detail, like I said, we're taking it from the basis up. Okay, so we can just simply click on load, simply click on load data, and we just give it a few seconds for Power BI to import, so you're seeing this dialog box here. It says load, creating connection in model, and it's just ongoing. So while this is going on, it will give me time to speak on a few things. Um, Now, I'd mentioned that when you're preparing something, you try to look out for your intended audience, right? Your intended audience, and you imagine what kind of information would be valuable to them. This is before you comment your work. What kind of information would be valuable to them, and then what level of detail, you know. In some instances, too much detail could be like an overload. It could become a burst. So you need to have that. Some experts would say write it down, okay, and I encourage you to write it down either on a piece of paper, type it down on your computer, or you have it mentally. You just try to say, oh, for this particular information that I want to put out, what is important for who is going to see this? What's the level of detail? Now, when you say what's important, it will now start helping you, to guide you what you achieve, things that on here. So, quick explanation of some of the things that you can see here. You have the file menu. Now, I assume you're familiar with certain applications. File menu typically is where you go to save, export, open, and other things, as you can see in here. Now, I'm not going to speak so much on that. Currently, by default, on the home menu, we have the set, we have modeling, view, optimize, and help, as it usually comes up, in most applications. Now, we're going to enter most on home, and when the need arises, we would also visit these other tabs that you can see here. Now, on the home tab here, you have groups of things, groups of menu. I like to call them groups of. So here you have the clipboard group, we have the data group, we have the queries, we have insert, calculations, and then we have these other three: sensitivity, share, and copilot. We're also going to touch on them as the need arises. Now to the left, to the left column here, like the sidebar, this left column, all we have here is what report view. We have a table view, we have model view, and then we have this DAX. Explanation of this report view, it's usually the fancy. This is where the fancy, the fancy thing, you see the fancy, what should I properly say, the output that you intend to achieve at the end of the day. It's what you get here, which is already selected, the report view. Below it, the table view allows you to see the table that you've inserted, the records that you've inserted rather, are in a tabular format. Looking at the table already, you see that, and I'm just going to click on this. So we can see that what we have imported has all of this. So you see it's loaded, and then we have all these records here with the columns. We're going to speak more to it much later. And then below it, the model view. Now, what goes on the model view is this is usually where you have more than one table that have a relationship. I think that's one of the simplest ways I can explain that. They have a relationship. So the next question is, what's the basis of a relationship? The basis of a relationship, it's typically common. So what is common to this table that is also common to this next table? That is what you use to establish a relationship. Okay. Now, as we progress in the advanced bits of the course, rather, we'll get to see how we can establish relationships as we deal with multiple tables. In this first session, go table, okay, and the DAX, as we progress, we're going to see that as well. So I'm just going to switch back to this report view. Now coming over here, you have this collapsed filters. You have this group here. We have filters. If we expand on this, it comes up in this way. Perhaps your screen might be wider, to take in the width of your screen can take in more, and so it probably isn't collapsed. But just so you know, you see it this way. And if it's collapsed, you just know what it entails. The filters, luckily, if we hover our cursor, we can see descriptions on these things. Filters. What I try to filters is that it's just typically as the word says, you're trying to display or work with a particular subset of an entire data set. All right, so you're specific. So for instance, one broad classification or use of filter is where you use gender, use typical genders to distinguish data. So you say, oh, I want all the males. Yeah, I want all the males. You have males, and the likes. And so you say the males. So you can just set your filter to say males. That's a typical example of using filters, and we use this in our everyday conversation. You know, now from this filters tab, which we're going to look into as we progress, we have visualizations next to it. This is part of where the magic happens, and we're going to explore a few of these visual elements as we can as we progress. And then next to it, by the right, we have our data, the data group there. Now the data typically, like it's where it displays your imported data, either the imported data or data that you have created. This is something that word created, something that we'll come to understand much later, as we progress. For now, we just have this particular data that, from the cargo platform which we downloaded earlier. The link is also there, so you can also access it, and practice to get your hands in on this while we're speaking to it. So now getting to it, I'm just going to move my cursor to the data bit there. To click on this, so it expands it. So I have, so it's historic mode, import, and all of that. So I just collapse. It shows me the columns. Okay, we had 15 columns, or we had 15 columns, as at the time of the import. Now, what's this data set for the benefit of those just joining in? This data set historic data of the Olympics, right? Games from the Olympics for the past 120 years. What are we trying to establish here now? So I'd like someone to just quickly imagine that we want to share this with who now? Let's say government official from perhaps the Ministry of Sports, you know, that's Ministry of Sports, and want to share this to say, hey, I think we should get into this space. Um, this is what the data says. Now, looking at all of this, we have different columns here. It seems to be sorted in alphabetical order. What do we want to show? Now, some popular things that you may want to imagine is the year. So, I think I would like to work with the years. In I have the entirety of the data. I like it to be based on the year. Now, just selecting this, it's important that I would recommend that initially, perhaps you could select a visualization, your preferred visualization element here, and then you apply the data as you deem fit. But before we start applying this, one of the first things I would like to include here is a quick text box. Okay, so I just click on this text box and I can drag it, you know, to increase its width, like you can see here. And now I'm going to just make a few adjustments to it. Okay, so let's just give this is going to serve as the title, of this report. So it's going to serve as title of this report. I'm going to say Let me increase this a bit. Okay, so I just have this title typed in here. I'm going to try to also increase bold, it's big and all of that. It's why do I want to do this? Is for visibility, to is going to see this. I'm just going to select a font size of 60. Okay, 60, and I'm going to drag this here. Okay, look at that. I didn't spell that properly. Okay, and now the formatting, formatting here comes to do with like colors and other things that would follow with it. So for now, I'm just going to leave this basic at this point. All right, I'm just going to leave this basic at this point. Just have this here. I'm just going to drag it up so we can have the things. Okay, now I'm going to also collapse this so we can see more white space. My friends in design would say it's really important to maximize, as much as you can get from it. That's this here, so you know, we're just playing with this. So feel free to give yours a more befitting title. Okay. Now, one of the things I would like to add to this is I would like to add that this is filtered by the year, right? The year of for we have what we have currently going on now is the uh, 2024 Olympics, which is hosted by France. So I can easily just drag in this year bit here, right? But I just don't want to do that. So I'm thinking like, hey, I need a filter for this. Okay, what visual would apply better for this? Excuse me. Now, this will bring me visual elements that we have here. So we have all these common chart types, it's bar charts, the column charts, and all the various bar and column charts. We have area charts, the line charts and the area charts as well. And then looking at this like a combo, combo being a combination, which is what it looks like here of a line, a column chart as well. And you can see that playing around here. Here you're seeing your waterfall charts, funnel charts. Now I'm seeing all of these things, and I'm just thinking to myself, for whoever is going to see this data, I want them to see things to be able to select by the year of the particular Olympic season. That's what I would like them to see here, this top right of the screen, beside the title. It's also been shared based on modern research now that people tend to read from left to right, So what really catches their attention, they focus on that bit, and the next point of precedence is that we're reading from left to right. Hence me putting this title at the left bit of the screen. So moving on to just glance through all these visual elements here, which are excellent, right? It's like an overload is excellent, but you're just trying to select which is the best fit for this data. Okay, which is the best fit for this data. Now, I have tree map as well. Now, I have a little bias because I know a bit more. So I have this card visual here. I also have this multi-row card. I have KPI. I have slices, okay, which is basically like where I would like to come in from. A slicer. It's like a filter. If you look very well, you can see something like a I icon, on this visual point. So I'm going to select this slicer, all right, and I just have this. So this is default behavior. You select a particular visual element that you want to use, and it just comes up this way. Now, if you move your cursor down based on your particular visual, it has preferred I call it behaviors or inputs. Yes, let's use that